Hi folks and welcome to your Gersnet immediate post Michael Beale and Connor Goldson Press Conference reaction pod, coming to you in association with Forest Precision Engineering. My name's Alec Anderson and I'm joining you after nobody's had to pick my jaw up off the floor, after I have in no way coloured myself surprised after hearing that Nico Raskin will not be available for tomorrow's match at Ibrox against Dundee. Is it Dundee? I think it's Dundee. Yes, we've gone from tiki-taka on the Tuesday to Mickey-taka on the Friday. Mickey Beale perhaps kind of taking the P when he's telling us that Nico Raskin is racing ahead with his rehab. He could put a positive spin in anything, Michael Beale, couldn't he? The problem is, Michael, we didn't know that Nico Raskin was injured 2 weeks ago in the Friday. It's a fortnight he's been out injured. It looks like there's no way he's going to make the Celtic game next week, which is all anybody wanted to talk about at today's press conference. I think if you wondered why nobody else has won the league in Scotland for 38 years, I think you saw a case in point today. We had our manager and our captain, or not, his vice-captain, Connor Goldson, a bit of Freudian slip there, sorry to have, talking about Dundee instead of Dundee United, kind of on this Steven Gerrard thing of getting their names wrong. I mean, why would anybody mix up two teams whose stadiums are in the same street and who have both won the Scottish League title one time each, who have both reached the European Cup semi-final? Dundee United have won the league and 2 league cups at Dens Park. Both clubs have won 4 domestic trophies total. I don't know why anybody would get them mixed up, but I think it's you need to give respect to get it back. And then I think about them all wearing their wee Craig White masks and certain members of the Dundee United board being very vocal in wanting Rangers throwing down the divisions, despite the fact that us having an all-seater stadium for about 30 years before they did. We're going to support their club for years with it on their all-terracing stadium. Yeah, I'm thinking it's Dundee. We're playing tomorrow. Look, the press don't know what to talk about that, though. They'd been even more disrespectful because they're just talking about April. They're talking about the month ahead. You know, April Fool's Day tomorrow. Jim Goodwin is arriving at Ibrox. I actually like Jim Goodwin. I don't really mind the guy. No, sorry about that. But it's all about Celtic. They're trying to get Celtic into the conversation. We've got Celtic next week. We've got them at the end of the month. Fixture dates for the post-split fixtures have been announced, but the actual fixtures themselves haven't. But it looks like we're going to get Celtic 3 times in the space of 5 to 6 weeks. So if that's all people keep talking about, that's how you end up in a situation where you've got these 2 teams, you know, the only 2 teams that are going to win the league this season, the only 2 teams that are going to win the league for the last 36 seasons. Rangers and Celtic, that's what it's all about. And we're now looking at a case where Nico Raskin is repeating what happened in the League Cup final. We all retrospectively decided we were appalled that Nico Raskin hadn't started that game and we lost, and that was the reason we'd lost, because we're always looking for a hard and fast reason. Now it looks like he's not going to play at Parkhead the next time we play Celtic. Maybe he's going to, you know, actually fulfil Michael Beale's prophecies for once when he talks about injured players returning quicker than expected. And he will be fit for next week. But I think you can see why Raskin didn't start that game in the League Cup final now. We've also seen why we wanted him to. We can also see what a fantastic player he is, what an influence he'll have in changing this to make us much more dynamic. But the guy hadn't played for a month during his dispute with Standard Liège when he's trying to get a move out of Belgium. And there he was, you know, when he has played, he's tired towards the end of the games, had to get changed, and knew he's got an early injury just through the times that we have been playing him. So I think you can maybe see Michael Beale's decision making there, you know, retrospectively now we can absolve him of all blame for the 11 he picked for starting that League Cup final. Looking towards next week, Michael Beale is keen to point out that we can't look too far ahead to next week, but Connor Goldson, for me, I don't know if it's a faux pas, I don't know if it's maybe try to kind of make something happen. It's a bit of gamesmanship, but mentioning the fact that Michael Beale had said to the players when he first arrived back in November that if we didn't win the league this season, he at least wanted us to win the league in terms of win more points than Celtic, basically. From the moment Michael Beale arrived. And so far, I mean, we're locked on level points with Ange Postecoglou. If you're looking at it from the moment Michael Beale arrived as Rangers manager, him and Postecoglou have both just dropped 2 points. The game against each other, which they drew in February, the Old Firm game, the 2-each game, in January. But I don't like the idea of Celtic being able to kind of maybe recalibrate. We play Celtic next week. I mean, I think the best we could probably hope for is it's still just 9 points in it. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. But it looks like it'll probably be 9 points in it at best. And that, with at that point, it'll be, what, 8 games to go? You're thinking Celtic's, the big chance we have that Celtic won't know whether to stick or twist. Just keep what they have or try and, you know, increase their lead. They're at home, obviously going to want to come for us in a basic sort of sense. But I think Michael Beale has maybe looked at the way Giovanni Van Bronckhorst's Rangers lost heavily to Celtic in 2 of the 3 times that Gio went to Parkhead. And he's thought, yeah, I fancy that. If Celtic come at me like that, I will know how to set up Rangers in a way that we can actually win that game. I hope that's what he said to Goldson today, told him to say that today, to bring Celtic out, to make them go for us as opposed to trying to hold on for a draw next week. Because otherwise, I think that's going straight up in the notice board in the Celtic dressing room, and that's making Celtic think, yeah, let's just go for it. Let's beat Michael Beale in his own terms as well. So that was a bit of a wee kind of bombshell for me, that one today, that wee revelation from Connor Goldson, as was the fact that the relationship status was a big thing in the pressers today. Apparently Michael Beale and Ross Wilson are completely aligned. They're on the same page when it comes to our transfer policy. Connor Goldson doesn't talk to Ben Davis. Turns out it's because Ben Davis is a fantastic player and doesn't need to coach him through games away. He's had to coach other players this season, Leon King, James Sands, and that's probably good news. But I think Nico Raskin needs to watch his back. Look at that Todd Cantwell. He's now busy mates with Malik Tillman. We're seeing this the past couple of weeks, a few weeks beforehand, we're seeing all these pictures of Raskin and Cantwell cuddling away. We're hearing about how they love each other because they both arrived at the club at the same time. They were best mates. The minute that boy goes back to Belgium for, a minute he gets in a plane, a departure lounge at Glasgow Airport, Cantwell's away, fluttering his wee ribbon in his hair at Malik Tillman, and now apparently they're best mates and they're the future of Rangers, according to the manager. So light jogging, is it, Nico? I think you'd better get your backside in gear if you want to get your man back there, because he seems a bit flighty. Yes, Gersnet is back, folks. The international break is over, apart from our manager, our assistant manager, part of the management team in the Rangers women's team being involved in a rammy at the end of a 100-minute game, live on Sky Sports, the Old Firm derby on the SWPL, apart from Jermaine Defoe finally getting to say a goodbye properly to the Rangers support at Ibrox during the Legends game last Sunday, apart from Ryan Jack getting booed by sections of the Tartan Army against Cyprus on Saturday. There's been virtually no Rangers news to talk about. We've been away, letting you have that international break, but we're back with a hard hitting, with probably the ICF of Gersnet Podcast. We're out there. We're no in the press conferences Auckland, how that's soaking up with the manager and soaking in with the board. We're out there in the street, hard hitting, telling it like it is, because we're brave, because we're independent, unless our wives tell us that we've got to go for a night out, or we get a wee bug. A lot of the boys have got a really bad throat infection just now. I'm feeling a bit myself, and they can't actually talk. My missus has just stopped for a fortnight's holiday for Easter, and I've been told what I'm doing for the next couple of weeks, basically running after her. So, yeah, as long as there's not going to be the usual Friday night preview pod tonight, because a lot of us have got other things we have to do, and a lot of us have got we can't do anything, because we're in bed with the flu. But myself and Colin will be back as long as our wives and our health lets us tomorrow for a post-match reaction pod after the match against United at Ibrox. And Colin will be back hosting the flagship show, the marquee Gersnet Podcast, 9:30 Sunday night, live on your YouTube channel. He'll be hosting the Stuart Robertson and Ross Wilson of Tunbridge Angels, Mr. Ross Bennett, and author and journalist Mr. Chris Jack. So that should be a cracker. Be sure to join us for that, folks. The only thing to talk about really is I'll just do a quick preview of Dundee United at Ibrox. It is Dundee United, let's admit it. Jim Goodwin, it's a weird one, Jim Goodwin. I mean, we've beaten them 3 times on 3 different grounds this season. I find that quite weird. We've beaten Ibrox, 3 completely different games as well. He came at us at Ibrox, so it was 1-0 up. Aberdeen were 1-0 up back in October. Ridvan got that injury, and it looked like all was lost. It was going to be a terrible day. We ended up scalping them 4-1. I think that threw Aberdeen's kind of bid to become the third force in Scotland. It threw that off the rails. That was the start of the doubts, I think, amongst the Aberdeen support for Goodwin's reign. We then had them at Pittodrie, where they were beating us in the 93rd minute, and we scored 2 quick goals in deep into injury time to win the game. And we had them at Hampden in the League Cup semi-final, a game that went to extra time, despite Aberdeen being down to 10 men. They'd taken the leader, won at half-time in that game. It was a bit of a struggle. And Mr. Brian Archer, one of those hard cases of the Gersnet Podcast, never tires of telling me how after that game I had said, I think maybe Jim Goodwin's been, undersold as a manager. I think he's maybe turned the corner a bit. I didn't think they played quite well today. Their next game, they were 4-0 down at half-time to Hearts, and 8 days later they get put out of the Scottish Cup by Darvel, and that was basically the end for Jim Goodwin. So he comes to Ibrox tomorrow in charge of Dundee United, who also we don't really put away at Ibrox past couple of seasons. We're 2-0 up against them at Ibrox earlier this season, maybe within the hour. But then they pulled one back and turned the game into a bit of a struggle. I mean, Charlie McCann was playing up front, you might remember it. Wasn't a great game, one of those games that you started to have real doubts about Gio. Last season, I think we played them just as COVID was coming back in before the grounds actually got shut down again. Dundee United had been totally afflicted by COVID. It was basically a team of reserves were playing against us. We only beat them 1-0 with a Tav penalty. Also, I think one of the games shortly before we went to Seville for the Europa League final, we played United at Ibrox, I think, this Sunday. Was that 2-0, maybe 2-1, 2-0, I think? Again, didn't score in until the second half. It was a bit of a struggle. We took a point off them in the 2 games at Tannadice last season. They were the first team to beat us since we'd won 55. First team to beat us in over a season. When Steven Gerrard took us at the start of last season, and then we had a draw there after putting Dortmund out of the Europa League. The Sunday we went to Tannadice. Pretty controversial game. So they give us hard games, United, and they're bottom of the league just now. They're bottom of the table, so we're expected to beat them. But they've drawn the last 2 games. Goodwin's only been in charge for 3 games. First one was against Aberdeen. They lost it quite heavily. But he's drawn away at Livingston, which is a decent result at that level. And he drew at home just before the international break with St Mirren, I think. And it was a controversial penalty that St Mirren got. United were protesting to the authorities and what have you about VAR in that case. So he hasn't really kind of built up any momentum, but he stopped the momentum of rot, basically, that was happening at United under Liam Fox. So they are bottom of the league, but it's now they're only 2 points behind Ross County, who play Celtic tomorrow before we kick off. They're 2 points behind Ross County, who are in the kind of relegation playoff spot, and they're 3 points behind like safety, the first safety spot, if you like, Kilmarnock in 10th place. So it's all to play for United. We better watch ourselves. I see we never quite put them away the way we want, and I don't know about you. The other message I was getting from the press conference today, I'm quite excited and quite kind of interested to find out what's going to happen with the team, with the lineup tomorrow, because the Fashion Sakala comment from the manager, he was talking. It sounds on the face of it, it's like he's saying, he thought the abuse Fashion was getting from the Zambia fans was unfair because he'd scored a goal and set a couple up during the international break when he's away playing with his country. But also he took an injury. He took a bit of an injury, so he's been training unopposed. He's not been in kicking the ball about the players getting tackled and what have you in training since he come back. So there's a wee maybe injury doubt there. And he also kind of subtly mentioned how Fashion is better for us away from home, which we can all see because teams come at us more away from home, or we're away from home, and that lets Fashion get in behind. And he also built up how, Tillman and Cantwell, as they have this fantastic relationship suddenly. You definitely could, somebody was asking, could they both be played together? And you can see them both playing. In fact, they're the future of Rangers, I think was the quote from Mick. So I have a funny feeling that maybe Fashion's getting a wee bit dropped tomorrow, and it's Tillman up front with Alfredo or Cholak. I think particularly when you factor in this Ryan Kent role just now, where he's been playing behind the front 2, if you like, or he's just been leaving the left wing open. In Fashion Sakala, who usually plays on the right, was going to the left wing at Easter Road, for example. I think that I could maybe see Lundstrom being dropped, and it's just Jack and Cantwell in the midfield, because Todd Cantwell is basically an entire midfield on his own. The energy and the coverage he puts into a game. That's just I'm just going to put that out there. That's maybe a possibility. You would maybe expect it to be the same starting 11 we had at Fir Park if they're all available. Also interested to see what happens at left back. I don't know, maybe you guys have heard some reports about Borna. I know he played, funnily enough, against Turkey during the week for Croatia. But Ridvan also was getting spoken about today by the manager as having got minutes back in his legs, or volume back in his legs, whatever that means. He's going to be fit and ready to go again. So perhaps it's Ridvan starting at left back at Ibrox again for the first time since Jim Goodwin was last at Ibrox. I hope he gets on better tomorrow. Another thing that has to be mentioned, of course, is Alan Griggs McGregor, his 500th appearance for Rangers tomorrow. Absolute legend. Also announced today that he's going to get a testimonial against Newcastle United on the 18th of July. Newcastle United is a rematch of the Alan McCoy's testimonial, or a rematch of the 1969 Fairs Cup semi-final, the first leg at Ibrox, seeing Willie McFall of Newcastle saving a penalty from Andy Penman, a 0-0 draw there, and somehow that's significant to me because Alan McGregor, all his greatest saves have been against Celtic or in Europe, and a lot more penalty saves. I know he's, we know that he's not the goalkeeper he was, but even this season, the last season, he's got a double save against Sparta Prague, was absolutely miraculous, that kept us in Europe and eventually gets us to a European final. This season, even when we're getting scalped all around the place in Europe, he's making double penalty saves against Napoli, who are going to cruise Serie A and might end up winning the Champions League themselves. So, greatest goalkeeper of all. For me, Andy Gorham was the greatest goalkeeper I'd ever seen. Was the greatest Rangers player I'd ever seen. Just the way he could get you at your seat, even just being a goalkeeper. But I think for length of service, despite that break in his service, which kind of hurt me a bit, Alan McGregor, what he's done before he left and since he come back, he's definitely the greatest Rangers goalkeeper I have ever seen, and he thoroughly deserves his testimonial, and he thoroughly deserves a standing ovation when he probably, no doubt, I think, starts the game tomorrow. We're going to have big questions about the injury crisis at Ibrox. Is it part of, I think it's just, for me, I just think it's a signing policy. We're a big team in a small league, and we've had to take risks on players like Kamar Roof and Philip Hollander, who are injury prone, and that's why we can get them. We get them from Bologna and Anderlecht and teams like that. That, with the compressed nature of the Champions League group stage this season, for a team who's back in the Champions League for the first time in a decade, the Champions League is a ruthless tournament. That's, I think, been a bit much for us. But the boys will discuss that on Sunday. Thanks for joining me. See you tomorrow, guys.